Thanks for coming to this Superset Meetup. I hope everyone's having a good day. I know it's late for some of you, maybe early for others. We will share out the recording. I know it's a common question, so we will share the recording out in the newsletter, and I'll post it in the Slack as well. And if you've signed up for this event, which means you're here, you'll also get an email with the recording as well. So I'm excited to have Pallavi and Satish here from the Bing team at Microsoft. They've done a lot of great stuff with Superset, really customized it extensively, and I'm excited to have them talk about what they've done. So I'll hand it to you, Satish, to take it from here.
Hey, thank you, Srini. Good morning, everyone. Let me share the screen. You are able to see it?
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. So, I want to start off first by saying, Superset is simply superb. So really thanks to all the contributors who have created this wonderful open source project. Today, we'll talk about how, at Microsoft, we have leveraged Superset to build Titan, which is our internal self-serve analytics tool for Bing and its sister teams, which includes Microsoft News, MSN, as well as the Edge, the browser. We are part of this big organization called WebXT. I'll just start quickly introduce myself. Again, I'm Satish Manivandan. I run the Friendly Neighborhoods data and analytics team for Bing. Have been at Microsoft for 20 years now. Half of it in Windows, and then the rest is in Bing. Have been part of the humble journey for Bing's road to profitability. We are kind of like a hybrid team of data scientists and product managers. We drive all the critical growth metrics as well as critical analysis insights and tools like this Titan to fuel the growth here. The team is actually globally spread. Hopefully I would also see Ong, he's the main dev lead for Titan from STCA, China. We have a huge team there. And also Lynn, who is the dev manager here in Bellevue. And then with me co-presenting is Pallavi. She's the main Titan product manager. Again, with 15 plus years of industry experience, she joined us 2 years back at Microsoft. So without further ado, let me start the presentation. So I want to cover in my overview a couple of things. One is just kind of talk about the history and evolution of Titan, some of the other tools we did, and mostly talk about what are really our high-level requirements that led to a tool like this. I also give you a little bit a glimpse of what is the kind of scenarios that we are trying to build this for. And then also, what are some of our common analysis scenarios that we use in Bing? And then you can kind of more appreciate why we did some of the customizations that we did. And then Pallavi will go through really step by step with actual UX illustration of what is the customizations we did it in Superset, which range anywhere from simple UX changes to some advanced analytics features. Lastly, we'll also end with a poll of some of the features that you would love to see, because one of the main intention for us is also kind of give back to the community as well as learn from the great work happening. And then we'd definitely love to do more follow-on discussions, if you want to have more technical discussions or anything else for that matter. So to start off with, right, to level set, for Bing, especially, it's a very, very data-driven product, right? We have more than 500 million first-party users worldwide using Bing. If you look at MSN, Edge, it's more like 750 or so monthly users. And then practically, even search engines like Yahoo are powered by Bing, right? It's like Google and Bing, if you don't count some of these other engines in other countries like Baidu in China and Yandex. So it's like a massive product. And we definitely have a lot of interfaces, right? One is, of course, the Bing.com. Second is even Windows search box. We also do file search there, or the Windows, right in the taskbar, you have a search box. You start typing, Bing search comes in. We have a mobile app. So how do we do this? Is of course, data-driven decision making is key, and it's throughout the product lifecycle, right? Tons of data questions gets asked to kind of help people shape their idea during planning phase, we call the opportunity analysis, right? So let's say right now Ukraine news is happening, how big is the segment there, what are the type of queries coming in, what can we do there, or if we come up with a new entry point, what will be the opportunity for impact. so on and so forth, right? So quite a bit happens for opportunity analysis. Of course, experimentation culture is key. So we run a lot of A/B tests, like 1,000+ experiments run. We do have a nice experimentation framework to kind of give scorecards. But at the same time, there is a lot of requirements on slicing and dicing once some metrics move to know what is happening. Then, of course, once we ship something, we want to really track the impact. Like, did this feature drive X amount of query volume or users or revenue and whatnot? And there is tons of dimensions, right? Like when I say dimensions, it's like you have market, you have what we call physically country, state, city, as well as like what is the entry point, which browser that they use. And then we have what we call around segments. Segments are like intents of searches, right? Like, shopping segment, recipe segment, people segment, even COVID segment, right? Like, so there are like 50+ teams. They all want to look at metrics all the time. So the need for, of course, like we have a central team who's trying to cater to the needs, but of course we try to get involved for more complex things, and we want to automate things and democratize data access to people. So that's really where tools like Titan kind of come in. And then I'll also give a quick glimpse of what are some of the kind of scenarios, right? So that you get a little bit of an idea. Again, I'm not sharing actual data, but at least you get an idea, right? So on the right is maybe the starting, right? Of course, everybody wanted to slice and dice. Here is our live site team looking at what is the traffic coming from its different data sets by pretty much like within 5-10 minutes latency. And then, a new feature gets released. Some team is looking at, okay, what is my adoption by different entry points and countries. So this is like a kind of a standard thing that people look at. Second thing is like week over week, something changed. Then we want to really understand what are the drivers for change. Like, so that is kind of, you see this waterfall chart down there. Then, of course, tons of user analytics happen. Okay, we acquire new users through this Bing rewards program. Again, if you're using Bing, I'll also do a little bit of marketing there. Use Bing rewards. It's a program it's like credit card rewards, like you can earn points. So of course, like, yeah, you can kind of see like what is the retention of users coming from specific efforts, right? Or specifically, we may be optimizing user experience to say, hey, there is a user comes to Bing, and then we want to take them to the image search experience, and from there we want to take them to a detailed search experience, right? Like, so then you call user flows, like how many people came to Bing.com, went to the main web search, and then went to image search. That's kind of what you call user flows. Of course, there's a lot more happens where some of it, like, it's hard to comprehend it in one tool. Like we literally look at actual engagement of the users, which is like you see a heat map. There are another tool, it's called Clarity. It's also available for external websites. That's something also you can check out. And then tons of query analytics happens again, right? Like this is an example, like, okay, health team wants to do some features. They'll do some query analysis. We use some segmentation and see, what people are so health conscious nowadays, like keto recipes is a good thing. So, then somebody will go and build a feature for, or we'll look at like, by different time of the day, what is the volume for weather? And we see, oh, what people use a lot of weather queries in the morning in mobile. Then maybe let's put a weather icon on the desktop that's actually powered by WebXT. So to try to see if we can get the mobile come to Bing to desktop. So this is kind of hopefully give you an example, right? So there is a lot of slice and dice. There is a lot of understanding contributors for change, and then a little more advanced analytics. And then what are the key things for Bing is really being able to work with things like query strings. That's actually very complex because it's all strings, right? Like when you have to do string analytics, I'll expand a little bit more in a second. So we need a tool where we can do this, right, at runtime. So again, as I mentioned, like there's no one single silver bullet tool that can answer all the questions. Like we have our petabytes of data in basically our big data infrastructure. It's called Cosmos. And then we definitely have tons and tons of aggregated data pipelines, metrics, which goes into many different tools. Some are internal, also our reporting tools like Power BI. But one thing we wanted always is like, how do we make it interactive and self-service? Somebody can come on their own and then kind of slice and dice and get the data on their own. So this is where like our journey, we didn't shy away from using third-party tools. Like, so we used more than 5 years Intrana, which is now called Scuba. So, I think it won't be, many of you might know. This is kind of the interactive analytics tool. I think the founders were from Facebook. And this is something that we worked in many ways. It worked great, like, should really thank them. But I can also humbly say that we are part of their evolution. In fact, Bing was one of their biggest customers. And then we were also part of the journey. And then also our system teams was using other tools like, Adobe Analytics, for example, even Kibana, Elasticsearch. We have tried to build our own tools using even Grafana, like many different things we have tried. But like, 2 years back, we really made a conscious choice that, hey, can we kind of try to build something more internal that we can own so that we can iterate faster? Definitely the requirements are getting too much. So that is when we then ended up building this Titan. So now this is something that has been successfully working for us. So we have a pretty healthy engagement here. So we have like more than 500 daily active users on this tool. And around 1,500 plus monthly active users. So the Bing, MS and Edge teams, like, we are like, 4,000 people or so, like the core team, right? So it's a pretty good reach. And then we have 100K monthly interactive queries that run, right? So this is like a pretty critical tool that people use. So now, with that, let me also go to the next step. Like, what are some of the very high level requirements, right? And what is the Titan really comprise of? So one is, the first thing is, we want to do interactive query and also being able to, for people to create dashboards, right? So that is kind of a basic scenario. The main other requirement is we need to be able to get insights really fast, right? Like we want really, within seconds, for like really large volumes of data, and really support this kind of high cardinality fields. As I said, like, for example, when we had Intrana, we originally start off with like a 2-week data set for live site debugging, right? Like really large volumes of data. Then we try to make it more general purpose. So we put our main Bing data with a lot of the common metrics for 3 months and then maybe 6 months, right? Like, and then building things with query strings was very hard. Like, for example, we were building something called a string tier that they did it to kind of support that separately. But now I can say in Titan, we have like actually more than 50 months of data with like real actually raw query strings. So we get like almost 10 billion unique query strings in a month. That's just to give you a scale, right? And then another is we wanted a place where we can have multiple curated data sets that we can inject at different latencies. For example, a live site data can be injected within like 10 minutes latency. Being fully processed data will be like once a day we'll inject it, because we do a lot of bot filtering, we compute what a session is and whatnot, right? So we need basically also a good backend system that kind of able to support many different parts of different types of data with different latencies. And also we want to provide ability for feature teams to come with their own data set. We call it bring your own data set. So they can put a data somewhere and then it just shows up magically on this tool. So that was important. And then second is, apart from basic slice and dice, we really wanted to have more advanced features. Again, it's nowadays it's not advanced anymore. Like, as I mentioned, the user analytics scenarios, like retention, user flows. And then lastly, we really want to enable users to easily share this, and also being able to customize a lot. Like people should be able to create custom metrics and whatnot. So Pallavi will talk more about this. So with these, we kind of tried different, but luckily, like, we landed really nicely. So we use the backend called ClickHouse, which is again a column-based database that actually the founders, I think, were from Yandex. So this actually really works great for us, for large volumes of data, compresses data really well, and the performance is really awesome. But at the same time, we have many different components, right? Like, for example, for some of the live site data injection, we also have components from Azure that finally inject to data to ClickHouse. And then there are different other components, like, we use MySQL for a lot of metadata storage. We also use Redis caching. Again, we can do a separate talk on just the technicalities with folks like Ang and Lin separately. Then comes the, Superset. This is our basically the front end where, we have basically all the awesome visualization. So right side is basically Titan. As you can see, this won't be not to this one. Like, you have the query builder, you have the awesome Superset framework. But if you just quickly notice on the top, see the header, you can see there's a lot more, right? So typically you have like, okay, data or charts, but then we have kind of dashboards, but then you also can see there is a separate thing called user analytics. I just give you an example of the user flow here. Then we also have something called experimentation. Even though we have very complex experimentation infrastructure, we are also trying to enable some lightweight scorecards and debugging in Titan. Lastly, there are some advanced users who love the SQL lab functionality, so they can write more SQL code itself beyond whatever we are able to offer. So this is kind of what is Titan about. With this, I will kind of hand over to Pallavi now to showcase all the custom features that we have done. And again, there is quite a lot. We have just kind of broken into 3 different parts, like, things we have done to improve the fundamentals of how do you make the interactive query experience really better. Then we have made some updates and also added some new visualizations to kind of meet to some of the popular needs. Then lastly, we'll talk about the user analytics features. So with this, Pallavi, take it away.
Thanks, Satish. Thanks, everyone. So now that Satish has talked about how we are using Titan and what Titan is, I'd like to talk about how we have leveraged Superset and done the customizations to make it super easy and convenient for our users to get insights. So when we talk about our users are anybody from product managers, feature PMs, marketing people, business operations folks, and data scientists, and as well as software engineers. So you see that what we have done is we have tried to do changes in the query builder to make it easy for people who don't want to write code, added new visualizations, made enhancements in the existing visualizations on popular demands. And then as Satish mentioned, like we have also taken a next step towards adding user analytics features like cohorts, retention, experimentation, user flows in Titan. So the first one is like, we have seen that people spend a lot of time in building queries where they have to write custom matrix, custom filters, or set columns for their analysis and visualization. In Titan, we have actually focused on all these 3 aspects to ensure that how we can make the life of our users easy without having the need for them to write code. People spend a lot of time in building like custom filters, custom matrix, and custom columns. And what we wanted to do is we wanted to make it super easy for anybody to create those, because these are something which they use day in, day out. Okay. So the first thing I want to talk about is the filters. So day in, day out, we have this need of creating complex filters. And what we did was we actually enhanced the query builder given by the Superset to provide the ability to the users to create complex nested and/or conditions within the query builder itself and create custom filters. For example, here you see, for an example, let's say there is a product manager who want to see like what are the number of COVID queries, or what they just want to see what is the number of COVID queries happening on Bing searches. Now, when we talk about COVID queries, you can have a lot of operators like query like COVID, query like coronavirus, or query like corona/space virus. And then we also want to ensure that we are masking the queries which we are not supposed to. So for example, some things which are not classified for the users. So all these complex nested and/or conditions you can actually create directly from the query builder instead of writing SQL. Not only can you create these custom filters using the query builder, you can actually save them for reuse later. For example, here you see the query, which are the query builder, the query which I created, normalized query like COVID, normalized query like coronavirus. I actually added it as a saved filter by giving it a name as COVID. And now when somebody is creating a new chart, whether it's me or anybody in the organization, they can actually go to saved metrics and access the saved metric, which is COVID, and reuse it. Now they can actually reuse it, or they can also use the query builder again to modify this definition a bit and then save it as a new filter which can be used later. So that's one of the things which we have done. Now, as we talked about filters are applied globally to all the metrics. Now let's say you are building a chart which have multiple metrics, and what you want is the ability to apply filters specifically to each of the metric. Now here, then again, what we have done is we have given the flexibility in the query builder to actually use complex and/or conditions to create custom matrix. You don't have to go, like you can obviously go and write custom SQL, but you can actually use the query builder and to nth degree complexity like this, or you can just change these on the click of a button and create this. So for example, here we wanted to just see a simple metric where, okay, what is the number of users on doing Bing searches on Edge browsers? So we created this metric which has certain filters which you see. Some of it may be new to you, people who are doing query, basically query is greater than 0, or a click is greater than 0, or the age of the user should be greater than 2 days. And then we are also defining what browsers we want to consider. For example, Edge browser we want to consider. And then we create a metric and save it as and we have just given it as a name as Edge DAO. DAO is daily active users. So once we create this metric, this is basically giving me the number of the Bing users who are doing Bing queries using Edge browser. Now, similar to filters, again, you can save your custom metrics the way I saved it as Edge DAO with the name and reuse them. Again, reuse could be by me or by anybody in the organization. And when you are reusing it, you can either reuse Edge DAO or you can use the existing complex filters, modify them. For example, here you see I just added another browser equals IE1. And then I changed the name of my filter. I said, okay, I want to consider the daily active users for all the MS browsers. And then I save it and then use it in different charts. Now, so we made it super easy for people to create metrics, to create filters. But as Titan adoption grew, as people started using these features to create more and more metrics, we also ran into a problem of having a long list of metric and sometimes people not being able to identify what was the metric they created, or they are not able to differentiate between the two metrics. For example, here you see retention DSQ greater than 5, retention temp DSQ greater than 5. And also, like, they don't know what is the right metric to use. So what was happening was, like, either people were creating new metrics for them with like similar definition, which have probably been created in the past, or they were getting frustrated in the process. This is something which we have seen even in Scuba. Like, Scuba is also facing this problem. And what we have done is actually leverage this beautiful Superset feature, which is the certification feature, to enhance users' experience. So we have put basically a governance around the matrix itself. So now when you start looking for a metric, let's say if you see saved metric BAU, which is daily active users, the first one you see is like average reportable DAO, which is basically the standard definition of the reportable daily active users, which is governed by a standard body. So for new users, that's very, very useful because they know, okay, this is the standard definition and they don't have to think about multiple filters that they might be missing in applying while they're calculating a metric. Then they see what is like, if you have created a similar metric in the past, and then the third level is that if others have created similar metric. So that's making it super, super easy for people to use. And this is a big problem that we initially faced when we were starting onboarding new users, that they don't know what to use. And that's something which have really helped people. Now that I talked about how we have simplified the user's experience in terms of building the queries, I want to highlight some of the visualization changes we did, like we made some enhancements in existing charts or we added new charts. So this one is mostly about the group by feature. Typically, group by is easy when you have relatively smaller, little less dimensions. But if you are doing a group by, let's say on countries, which is like n number of countries, or in Bing case, where you can also do a group by on the queries which people are typing and that runs in tens of thousands, then that dimension becomes very difficult to analyze and comprehend if you do not have the feature to classify and see who are the top contributors for that. This is where actually we added, and it was on a popular demand, that we added the all others functionality in like most of the charts, pie chart, table chart, line chart, area charts, so that you can actually see your top contributors and you can actually define the number of top contributors you want to see. Like if you really want to see 1,000 contributors, you can see 1,000 contributors. If you typically it's 10 to 15 people want to see, so you can define that in the row limit. And the way Titan does it, it calculates the top contributors and then put rest of the others in the others category. Then some of the metrics adjustments we did, and I'm not sure, by the way, I think that might have come in Superset version 1.4, is that like when you are using multiple metrics may have different type of units and you want to showcase them in the charts with different units. So that's another thing which we have done. Again, simply in the query builder, we have a customization tab where you can actually do all these kinds of changes for your easy reporting and better visualization for others. Similarly, table chart. I don't know, I'm sure most of the people here would agree with me. Like table chart is one of the most used chart in the Superset community, at least for us, and I guess it is for all. So what we did was actually we created a functionality so that you are able to easily visualize the positive and the negative values as a gradient in the table chart. Again, as more and more people are using Superset, Titan for visualization and their LT reporting, this was one of the features which we think would be pretty useful as well. Now I also want to talk about some of the things on the performance side. So as Satish mentioned, like while we were making it super easy and convenient for our users to query Titan and get insights, we also wanted to ensure that we are not compromising any time on the performance. And by performance, I mean that Titan generate results on petabytes of data just in seconds. So for that, what we have done is we have given a sampling option to the users. Now, as you know that Bing dataset or other datasets in Microsoft run in petabytes, and we have very complex high cardinality fields like the query strings which people are searching for. And if you want to look at a long period of data, let's say 15 months, more than a year of change, what you can do is you can use the sampling button. And if people are using the sampling button, Titan at the back end actually has like two data sets. One is like the 5% sample data set from the full data set. And it actually queries from that and upscales the results and give the result in like seconds. So that's more for like high-end users who want to do long-time queries, but they don't want to compromise on performance. So we have this feature enabled. But of course, like you can do everything on sampled or on unsampled. And it's just a matter of like all the results you will get in seconds. Okay, so these are some of the new charts we have added. So we have added waterfall chart. Again, we've taken some of them from the eCharts library by Apache. So waterfall chart, the divergent bar graph chart, and again, the waterfall pivot, especially because some of the common scenarios we see in analytics is people want to see how the metric is changing over a time period. So this is a waterfall chart where we wanted to see for a week-on-week period how the COVID queries are changing by country, like what is the contribution of COVID queries changing by country. So if you see, again, we had to redesign the query builder where you can give metric, you can give filter. Filter can again be, now see, that became very simple. I wanted to see COVID queries. I have a custom filter created as COVID, which I just talked about previously. So I just use that filter and I do a group by. Here, the date picker is something which we have defined after a lot of user research and analysis, so that you can actually do a week-on-week comparison, month-on-month comparison, year-on-year comparison, and then you can see the change. Now, similar to waterfall chart, we have the divergent graph, which basically helps you to quantify the contribution of total change by chosen dimension. And this comes pretty helpful, especially in the chosen dimensions, when you do not have, like some of the dimensions do not add up to 100%, like we have things like query segments. And this is where we have seen that divergent graph is super useful. Again, if you see the query builder, it gives you the date picker in a much flexible way for you to define the time periods exactly the way you want to define them. Okay. Now that I have talked about how we simplified the user's experience, made it easy for people to use Titan using the query builder, adding new charts, making enhancements. One of the things that we have seen is, and with the evolution of Titan, as the adoption grew, like people now take user analytics for granted, especially in a metrics-driven organization like Microsoft, WebXT. We have seen that everybody wants that user analytics is on their fingertips. This is where we decided that we would take the next evolution of Titan and we will start building user analytics features in Titan. So we thought about building user analytics features, for which we have Cohorts as the foundation. So we build user analytics features like Cohorts, which some people can also consider as segments in the layman terms, Then we talked about retention. Then we also went ahead and built user flows and experimentation feature in Titan. I'll talk one by one about these. So the first, let me talk about cohorts. So cohorts is nothing but a group of users which is defined by certain conditions. And here, if you can see that we define this beautiful feature in Titan, again, all through Query Builder, it takes 2 seconds for you to create cohort. So you can define the time range, you can define the metric, you can filter it on MOIT because cohort is basically a group of users. And then you can use filters. Again, we have masked it here, but filters has the same Query Builder, very intuitive. If you see, if you want to create a filter, you just give the conditions like reward user, MOIT age, user is stable, and then you just run and you get a group of cohorts. Now, cohorts are very, very useful. For example, if you want to see, you launched a feature like Satish just talked about Bing rewards feature. And by the way, everybody should go and start using it. That's like an awesome feature that Bing has. So you want to see, like, since you have launched the Bing rewards, like how is rewards user doing with respect to the overall Bing users? Or you want to see, like, are people who are doing shopping queries, are they using more rewards and coupons by Bing? All of this you can actually do in seconds on Titan, and I'll just show you. So this is one example. Let's say you just created a group of users. Let's hypothetically say that they're active users or rewards users. Now what you can do is you can use this as filters in any of the charts and see the feature impact. Again, this is one example where you see in the filter builder, in addition to other options like equals, not equal, so we have in cohort as well. So simply what you do is that you apply that as a filter and you can build a line chart. For example, you want to see the growth of Bing active users. You just use this in a filter and then just show it. Now, again, cohorts can also, so this is one example of using cohorts, like you created a cohort of Bing active users and see how they're doing over time. Now you can also, Titan also has the functionality that you can create time-bound cohorts. For example, you want to only see Bing active users for the period of, let's say, April. And you want to see how that group of user is doing in, let's say, March, or what is their week-on-week growth, or you want to see what is the retention of Bing active users in the continued months or weeks. So that is where either you can do a simple line chart or you can actually do a retention. Again, so this is the query builder for retention. Typically, I'm sure you all would have experienced a normal cohorts and retention scenarios which data science do, and especially on this level of scale of data. Like typically it takes like 1 to 2 days. It takes hours for us to run the query itself. And now with Titan, we can actually give the results in like less than a minute. So if you see the query builder again, all you have to do is you just select a time picker and you give people the period type, and you can actually see monthly retention, weekly retention, or daily retention. And over any period of time, it could be over 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks, 12 weeks, it's up to you. And it's all the flexibility that the user has. You define the cohort and you are able to see the retention of users over a period of time. So this is how the retention output looks like. And it just shows that, okay, for a particular thing like Bing active users or Bing rewards user, how does their weekly retention looks like over a period of time. Now, once you have seen that how the retention looks like over a period of time, there is a practical use case which we see. Are your retained users more engaged or not? How are your retained users doing? So what we have also done was not only can you see the retention of your users on your product, on your feature, but you can also measure the engagement of your users over a period of time. So similar to creating a retention chart, you can define a engagement metric chart for users by quantifying what metric you want to see over a period of time for retained users. It could be revenue. For example, you are looking at Bing COVID users and you want to see what are the number of searches per user for COVID related queries. You can just define that as metric like queries per user. You can define the required cohort again simply in the query builder, use the filter, move it in cohort, and you can give the cohort name, and you will be able to see the engagement of users over a period of time. Now that I have talked about cohorts and retention and how you can see cohorts over how you can see the feature impact, how you can quantify the feature impact on retention of users or on engagement of users. Another problem which we saw was that people wanted to see how their users are doing in their user journey while they're using a product or a feature. We have now Superset had the Sankey charts, but what we wanted to do was we wanted to build a multi-level user flow where people can actually define their own n number of steps and see how their users are traversing. So this is a feature which we did after interviewing more than 70 folks, because we wanted to ensure that after the user research that it is super easy, super intuitive, and also super fast for users. So if you see the left-hand side query builder, you see that all the user have to do is like define a window span time, like in which the user would expect it to complete the journey. And that could be anything, like you have to define kind of a maximum time. And you just chronologically give the steps like step 1, step 2, step 3. For each step, you have the group by functionality if you want to see how the users are basically, if you want to see for each step at different dimensions. This is one example where we are just showcasing how people are moving from Bing homepage to a news page, and then they are doing the further reading the further news articles and which categories. So if you see on the left-hand side, you just define click on plus sign, define the first step, identify the group bys, and then do it. There is another thing which we have added. Some of the times the events could be separate events, or some of the times your clicks or your events could be in the same impression. So that is also something the user can actually define in the mode functionality. So user flows has been very, very helpful. And I'm sure some of you have already tried the Sankey charts, but these are some of the customization. Of course, we have done some of the customizations on the design side as well. But yeah, the focus has been that most of the people want to see whenever they launch a feature, or mostly it is a feature, like how the people are traversing, so that they can identify where the digital leakage is happening and take their proactive actions. Okay. So this is one of the another thing which we have built, which is basically the A/B testing view in Titan. This is one of the this is one of the another complex features that we have built. Again, usually in scenarios like Bing, there are like thousands of flights that are run each day. And what we wanted was we wanted to give our users the flexibility to actually debug their flights on the runtime while the flights are going, to take decisions or proactive measures in addition to taking shift decisions. So what users can do is now that they can define which key metrics they want to track for their flight, give the treatment and the control flight and the filters, and they'll be able to see how their metrics are doing in treatment versus control, look at the delta values and look at the p-values as well. And this helps them to say, okay, where the regression is happening, if they want to take any immediate action, or if they want to plan for the next actions they want to take for their flights. So in Titan, we support like filters, and we also support trigger conditions if users want to define the trigger conditions for their scorecards. So that is also something you see in the trigger condition tab we support. Now, as the focus for Titan is on helping people to debug their flights, so we also created another view where people can actually have one metric, and they can select a metric and they can see over a period of time how that metric is doing between the treatment and the control flights. So this is another one where you want to see on certain, when you want to see a particular metric over a period of time, which is, let's say, your key metric like revenue, searches, and see if there are particular time frames where the regression is happening, or if it is in general that is happening, and take proactive measures on that. So again, the experimentation feature, it's it's heavily compute intensive. It's usually like there are like thousands of flights. So again, the scale of it is much higher. And that is something which we are making it super easy through Titan to help our users. And the focus is that they should be able to debug on n number of dimensions, and they should be able to debug much faster and at a scale. Okay, so now that we have talked a lot about the customizations we have done, how we have built Titan, what I would like to do is basically we would like to hear from you. We want to have your audience polls. We talked about a lot of features, including query builder, including the visualizations, enhancements, new charts, the user analytics features. What I wanted to hear from all of you here is like, if you have to make a top choice on what you want to see next in the Superset version, and of course, we are here to learn from you to see how we can contribute what we have done, what would be your top choice? We have the ID number across some of the things we talked about, and it will be helpful if you can just start typing in what would be your first choice in the chat box. We would definitely love to hear from you. Okay, I see a lot of ones, the query builder.
Yeah, if only there was a tool.
I'm sure our dev team would be super happy looking at one. That was their choice as well.
Someone said 1 to 3.
Cohorts. I'm sure Srini and Max, you are noting this. That's where we will have a follow-up discussion.
I'm not necessarily, but I think yeah, we can. I'm curious. Yeah, we can also follow up with a more like accurate poll if you guys want to do that. But it looks like definitely 1, 3, and 4. 1 and 4 seem the most interesting. Someone said all of them, so there you go. I think that's probably what you have to do.
Yeah, somebody's saying 9. That's also nice. No, this is overwhelming. Thank you so much. Yeah. One thing I want to call out is I think we also have Wang and Lin hopefully join with dev as well. Some features, especially like the cohort retentions and user flows, they also use some functions from the backend, which is the ClickHouse. I think especially user funnels uses some of the functions there. So we haven't quite tested. So Ang, could you expand a little bit more? But I think some of the other ones like cohorts retention, they use subqueries and stuff. I think they should work with any backend. So that may be one more factor to consider. Awesome. I know there are some couple of questions as well. Yeah, we can definitely go through some of this.
Yeah.
I'll stop sharing my screen. Maybe we can take questions now.
Yeah, so I think there's a Q&A panel. How do we do it, Srini? Like just go through one by one, probably?
Yeah, I'm happy to kind of ask the question and then I'll clear it out. So we have about 14 minutes, so let's aim for like, I don't know, a minute for each question maybe. But first one, Pavan asks, question for Titan Group on choosing Superset over Power BI or other tools. So why Superset?
Yeah, maybe I'll take this one. Yeah, so so definitely like, Power BI is awesome, right? As a reporting visualization tool. What we love Superset is for its this interactive query experience, right? You have the left pane with the ability to interactive query. And then, so ideally the combination would be like, the interactive query experience with all the visualizations of Power BI. So in fact, we were even talking with like Scuba Intrana because their visual set was much smaller, but we were pretty surprised. Like in Superset, like, you pretty much have a whole set of D3 libraries, like anything and everything, right? So yeah, it's basically different parts of the funnel, I guess. Yeah, it's the extendability and also the interactive query experience.
Makes sense. Second question, Arki asks, have you done UX research while designing query builder user interface? I know a bunch of people are asking about, some people think it's really cool, some people are overwhelmed. So I think this is kind of a natural question, is like what the design research was like for this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, Pallavi, you want to talk about this?
Yeah, sure.
I can.
Yeah, so we actually interviewed like for the query builder. So first for the generic query builder, and then specifically for cohorts, retention, and user flows query builder. So we actually interviewed more than 50 to 70 users. And like Satish mentioned, we already have like 500 users, but of course in the beginning we had relatively less. So we had a set of users who were power users, and of course me and Satish were not part of it totally. And then we had power users and we had other users. So we had three sets of users basically, from where we did a couple of like 50 to 70 interviews we did. One for the generic query builder, which we built initially, and then for the specific user analytics features, we did that, yes.
Yeah, so definitely to add a little bit more in terms of limitations. So one thing definitely with Superset, the visualization is like if the number of conditions become too long, it's a little bit hard. Like, you can't scroll and also like, so I don't know, somehow, because it's basically where you are on the UI, right? Like, let's say your filter condition sometimes is at the bottom of the screen on the left itself, right? I don't know, there's some easy way for us to kind of move it up or something like dynamically, or just expand it sideways. Like there should be, I think, some sort of framework for us to kind of move it around a little bit faster. That'll be nice. And then sometimes we also want to do a little bit more in metrics still, like, like being able to still multiply by some number, like, we'll have a metric like revenue per 1,000 searches, right? Like, like some easy divide. And so I think filter condition is good. Like, we were able to nicely design this and or conditions, but still I think we may even want to still do a little more on UI to be able to do this kind of basic math calculations and stuff. So the idea is like, yeah, there's always a custom SQL. And then, so yeah, definitely we can do a little bit more there. And then another limitation currently we deal with is if you already have a custom filter, like, can I have 2 or 3 custom filters used at the same time? Like, we still have to figure that out. Either you have standard metrics or one custom filter. So yeah, definitely more to go. But yeah, mostly thing annoying, at least for us, is like being, the UI can't scroll easily and stuff.
Great. I think there's a good follow-up question here actually on the query builder. John Bodley asks, regarding feature 1, taking a more holistic view, one question I have is, should Superset or really any BI tool, is that really where you want to store complex business logic? Wouldn't there be more merit in pushing this logic upstream into the ETL process? So interesting question there.
Yeah, so here we want to optimize more for performance, right? So that's why like most of the complex computations happen at the data generation itself. So in fact, our raw data, like, like it's really huge, right? Like, we kind of like, petabytes of data, and then we try to put in more like, 20 or like terabytes, like for us on a daily basis. So a lot of processing happens. Like in fact, many metrics get created. I'm more talking about some lightweight metrics, right? Like, usually ratio metrics, coverage of a feature, how many times feature is present divided by all impressions, right? Or click-through rate. Like, these are kind of simple metrics that we still want to keep raw level data. We call it impression level data, right? So every page that user sees is called an impression with an anonymous user ID of sorts, right? And then that's where we want to, so that we can do this interactive query at speed. But then I'll give one example, right? Like, let's say a page has multiple features present on it. We call it answers. Like, you type a celebrity search, there will be an image card, then there is a video card or a news card, right? So then we create what we call a set column, like, at data time, like, number of features shown, number of features clicked, like it'll be like a set column. So like this, like there are different things we do to kind of enhance, or we'll create a metric called manual requery rate, or like a success rate or something like that. So many things happen offline for sure, but we still want to be able to have some easy, like, divide by percentage and whatnot.
Yeah, it makes sense. And also I think if you guys are focused really on empowering and democratizing data and analytics, then you can't know ahead of time kind of what everyone wants to do. You kind of need some level of end user ability to do customization, answer the questions they want. So very cool. Another question by Query Builder, Zuzana from actually Airbnb asks, the Query Builder looks awesome. I have 2 questions. One, are you using a fork of Superset or open source Superset with internal overrides and customizations? 2, would you consider contributing the Query Builder back into, actually, we'll skip that one because I think you've answered it. The related question is, how big is your internal team that supports these customizations? So are you using a fork? How are you customizing it? How big is your team that's supporting this process?
Yeah, so I think at different times we had different sizes. At least I would say right now, like it's like 10 people core team, the development team, right? And then we have at least Pallavi, and we have a backend PM, like two product managers in there. So that is the core. Again, there is a lot of components, right? One is the UI, as I also said, like we have different upload process for different, like there is a different upload process for like a live site data, which has to be injected within few seconds. So this is kind of the main core team, but then there are different teams for different data sets. Like, let's say the Edge team, they own their data set, for example, like, MSN team, they own their data set. So there's a lot of hooking happens. And yeah, definitely we took a fork, and I don't know, like Pallavi, you want to add like which version? I think we have been like waiting on the version upgrade. In fact, we reached out, I think, to Srini also to find out, hey, what is your plan? Like if you do something, it won't break us, or like, let us get integrated. Yeah, it just all happened too fast for us. But yeah, we want to keep good check with the latest version, and also come back as
yet at 1.4, so we are upgrading the sprint on 1.4, and Ang can add more on that. But yes, we have a 4.
For sure. Great. I haven't seen Ang unmute, so I'm gonna assume maybe the.
Yeah, Ang is actually joining pretty late from China. He was excited to be there,
so
but yeah, hopefully
no worries.
you can hear us. Yeah.
Understandable. Great. We have 6 more minutes just to set expectations, so we have a good number of questions. So I think we answered the team size. Michael Molina asks, Superset's going through important design and feature changes. 2.0 is almost here. 3.0 is being planned and discussed. How are you handling Superset upgrades? So kind of maybe a follow-up to how you guys think about kind of the upgrade strategy there.
Yeah, I think frankly, the answer is we haven't figured it out. Seriously, yeah. So because we had kind of a little bit of a time pressure to replace some of the old tools, right? So we start with this, but then as you saw, right, there was like a lot of basic and then advanced features. So we kind of did all of it. Then at least like we did one upgrade, and then that's about it. Like, so we just have to, I think we just have to figure out now. Like one good thing is like, we would love to have some sort of process of what are all the feature set coming. And also I think we need some sort of assessment, right? Even to see which features will regress or whatnot. Yeah, no, I think we haven't figured it out.
Yeah, makes sense. It is. There's a lot going on in the repo, so it can be difficult, for sure. Someone asked Newbie here, how can I use the sampling option? I don't see that as an option. Yeah, you don't see it as an option because it's not available broadly. So hopefully, some of these might be open source. So that's why you don't see it. Anonymous attendee asked that. Can you explain more about metric governance? Do you have any strategies for standardizing metrics?
Yeah, I can take this question. So we basically have, for each of the data sets, we have a data governing body, and that's like a set of folks who basically are responsible for the definition of the metric, and that especially goes for custom metric, and sometimes it goes for the simple metrics as well, but mostly the saved and the custom metrics. So which is where the ownership of being able to edit or delete or update those metrics is given to that particular data team. And that's what you saw when I was showing the published one. Other than that, for the matrix which you have created, you can just edit it or anybody else can use it. And then you can also use the matrix created by others. If you are trying to modify the matrix created by other, basically you have to save another, you have to basically rename it or give it another name, but you can obviously do that. So the main is around published metrics. I know Superset has a certified feature which we use. So basically that's where we put the checks that only those set of folks can actually update or identify or update or delete that particular metric. Nobody else has access to it, but those folks has, because we don't want to be stuck at doing a manual process of reaching out to them and then getting the update. So that's like all automated right now.
Got it. Very cool. We have a few more questions. So Superset has outstanding security vulnerabilities. Many of them don't have a fix. How do you guys deal with just the inherent kind of insecurity of fast-moving open source projects? How do you deal with security issues within the Titan project?
Maybe Ang can talk about, we have AAD authentication, and Ang, would you like to talk more about that?
Yes, actually, we introduced the AAD authentication into the Titan, and we have some internal review process to ensure its security and compliance. And we also know after we scanned the source code of the Superset, we got some security issues. Most of them should be related to JavaScript or the other things. So basically, for now we ignore that, but we have planned to check it one by one to ensure it's not the security issue. But basically, we just open the Titan internally, so the user outside our Microsoft cannot access the data and the code. So for now, it's security. Yeah.
So there is a parallel work going on where we are building a compliant version of Titan, and like Microsoft has like much higher standards, and obviously everybody knows like they have much higher standards. And so we are actually, because we are using ClickHouse and Superset both open source, we are actually working on creating a compliant version of those as well. Again, don't ask how we are forking it, but yes, there is a parallel work going on that side as well. But even for the existing one, all the required AAD, Azure authentication and all, and like only being accessible to internal COPNET, that all has been enabled on Titan.
Totally. Yeah, I think most of the large organizations that I've spoken with, it's the exact same thing. Like there are bugs, there's security issues, but you just, if you have to go to the basement and physically open a lock to use it, to take an extreme analogy, then, you're kind of just limiting the surface area there. Great. We have just about another minute or two, and then we'll just get through as many as we can here. Are there any other features in the works you're thinking of implementing? What's next for the Titan platform?
Yeah, so maybe there is quite a lot we want to do. So there are a couple of streams of work, right? At least one thing is there are some basic ML models we want to integrate. Like, you saw a query segmentation, or even I heard some of these are also there, like, you show a line graph, can you do a forecasting model? Right. So we want to see, can we predict this? So that is definitely one important scenario. Second is we want also to have ability to have people go through multi-step thing seamlessly. So let's say I say, okay, what are the top queries? And then I get a table view. Today, actually, we see from our click-through heat map for Titan itself, people are trying to click that, right? They want to say, oh, I want to click this and see how it works in Bing or Google, or I want to go and see for this query some other metrics, right? So we want to be able to actually give links from one chart to another chart, and maybe even make that configurable part of the UI. So that is something we think will go a long way. And then we want to kind of templatize it and then kind of give us workflows, so that people know that if I'm a feature user, here are the 10 things I do. Or if I want to debug that a metric is going down, this is my 4-step slice and dice process, right? So like definitely we want to improve that, do more of the ML work. And definitely experimentation is also a key thing, as we saw. Like, we have some basic functionality here, but there is quite a lot of debugging that we can do with the focus on experimentation. And also we want to do a lot more on the data set side as well. Like, being able to see if we can join some other data sets to different data sets, and being able to do, it's a little bit harder right now. So these are like, kind of some of the things, but most importantly, a lot of people love it. There's still some sort of learning process. How do I get started and whatnot? Yeah. I don't know, Pallavi, you want to add more?
So I just wanted to say, and we haven't probably shown it, but we have also embedded analytics in a lot of internal web portals and other reporting tools and other analysis tools that we are using. And some of the features of Titan, which you don't see here because relatively less related to Superset, that we also have self-serve data capability on which we are doing enhancements, and API feature, which help you get the data and analyze in different other portals as well. And in addition to that, we have embedded analytics, where we have integrated with a lot of other portals and a lot of other apps in Microsoft for people to see the data and do.
Awesome. Great. One last question we'll take. I think you guys kind of covered this, but what size community does the product support? So how many people are you talked about how many people are supporting the project and the platform, but how many people are kind of building queries, and how many people may be consuming the results of charts and dashboards?
Yeah, I think maybe I very quickly glanced at. So yeah, so we have 500 plus active users daily and 1,500 plus monthly users, right? So I think the bigger Arc WebXT that we have, with all partners combined, it will be easily like 6,000-7,000, but not all teams data sets are there. So that's the scale. And then 100,000 interactive queries gets built every day, every month. And then like at least like you have 5,000 saved charts in a month. So this is kind of the scale we are talking about. So at least our goal is like, at least like you have a monthly users of like easily like 5,000 plus, and then a daily users of 1,000 plus. is what we are targeting right now.
And I know Satish is humble. I just want to add that this is like, this is the scale we have achieved in like 18 months. Like we just started the scratch of the product 18 months ago. So yeah.
Yeah, and then the query success rate is like 98.9%, which was a pain. Like a lot of queries were failing and whatnot. So we got to do a lot of work, and also mostly within seconds. But yeah.
That's awesome. Very cool. Well, thanks again for your time. Thanks for sticking around a few more minutes. I think next steps, we should definitely, maybe have a GitHub kind of discussion thread going, a Slack discussion, like see, what you guys want to open source first, and just see how other people may want to be involved. So we can kind of follow up on next steps, but hopefully we can get some of this stuff into core Superset. That'd be awesome.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah. Hey, thank you so much. If I can take just one last thing, I also want to do one small thing. So yeah, this is our email. So feel free to contact us. And again, yeah, we'll be in touch with Srini, like to contribute back and also learn. And then last thing I'll also say that we are also recruiting, like we have like 5 positions, 2 in Barcelona, 3 in Vancouver. Some are for general data science for the team, and also 1 product manager for Titan as well. So if you know any friends or anybody else, yeah, contact us as well. Hey, thank you so much.
Right.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks everyone. Have a good rest of the day. Bye-bye.